Hello, listeners and viewers. This is the Henderson Real News Show, the only show where you're going to get real facts all the time. No propaganda, no hearsay. You're going to get the real news. That's why we call this show the Henderson's Real News Show. Organize, don't criticize. Every time you hear the Henderson Real News Show, we're going to be talking about 5 things on each show separately. Number 1, education and training. Number 2, religion. Number 3, principles of leadership. Number 4, economic development. Number 5, politics. And we are going to show you through a series of podcasts, radio shows, television shows, workshops and seminars, and every now and then I might even preach to you using biblical verses to show you that you are not here alone, that there are some directions you need to follow. Even though I know many people don't like to follow directions, there are directions you are supposed to follow from birth to death if you want to be in a position to be respected as a human being. Now today I'm going to do part 2 of a show that I started last week. And of course, part 2 is talking about the guaranteed salvation development model for new business developers. The guaranteed salvation business development model for new business developers. I'm talking about you that's been working a long time, that are tired of working for other people. You want to get your own business. You've been thinking about it. You think you have skills in certain areas. Some of you have skills in several areas. And I'm going to talk to you today so you can see that you have an opportunity to be successful. And at the same time, you have an opportunity to fail. My job, since I believe in giving you positive facts that is based on research, hardcore thinking from specialists, and then documented studies and reviews on various models of activity that I just mentioned, I'll show you how to be successful. Now, if you want to think about one of the best things that most people have been ignoring for thousands of years, I'm going to give it to you today. I'm going to talk about what you've been not hearing from your politicians. You have not been hearing anything that's significant about what I will be talking about today from your preachers and priests, imams, and so forth. You will not hear anything about what I will be talking about in a few minutes from your corporate leaders. You're not going to hear it. And folks, part 2 today will be talking about the small business model of Jesus Christ, part 2. And I just told you on the last show that this is the world's smartest business development director, Jesus Christ, the man that most people in the world profess to love. And at the same time, I'm going to show you that most people throughout the world fail to love him in practice, in deeds. They're just talking heads, talking about they want to be saved, talking about they want to do the right things for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. And that's all it is, talk. And that's why, folks, the key lesson that you will learn today is that Jesus Christ started and still maintained the largest business in the world. I told you this last week. He started it thousands of years ago, and he still maintains the largest business in the world. Now look at this fact. I told you we deal with facts only. Now, if you have the largest business in the world, this is what you have. You have the financial worth in one business that is more than all the currency owned by all the businesses in the world. And we are including the United States, Europe, Asia, Africa. All of these are worldly nations, have money running out of their pockets, heads, ears, everywhere. Don't know what to do with it other than finance dictators, finance warmongers, ignoring the poor, ignoring the middle class, taxing them to death, only making profits for the business elite. And they work with the politicians. They own the politicians. And I'm telling you, folks, that's what I want you all to think about. Do you want to own the politicians? Do you want to have more respect for the corporate elite than yourselves, than your family members, than the people in your community? Are you going to be swayed to do the wrong thing to help others and let yourself suffer? And I'm going to tell you again that if you want to avoid those things, you have to do like Jesus Christ, the loving God of mankind, along with what I call the supreme being that created God, that created Jesus Christ, the man we're going to be talking about today in part 2. Now, how did Jesus start his business? Just to give you a reflection and another short introduction, Jesus started his business with selective membership. Selective. He didn't hire all of his relatives and friends that were not qualified. He started small, and I told you last week that most of you that start businesses, you want to start with your relatives, your friends, because you don't want to pay them anything. You don't want to get a specialist, one with the expertise in your area of activity. And if you want to be smart, you do just like Jesus. He started with 12 people. He called them his disciples, his order takers, not policy makers. They would listen to their boss, their corporate leader, Jesus Christ, and do what he told them to do. Now, all of them didn't do it all the time. Out of those 12 disciples, 3 of them, and I'm not going to name them on this show, but 3 of those disciples were totally worthless. You know what they did to Jesus. You know how they betrayed him. He'll tell them to go and stand and watch, and they'll go to sleep. Others will identify him by pecking him on the cheek so the soldiers will know, here he is, we're going to kill him. And there are others just denied him and wouldn't do and be where he told them to be. That's why you have to start small. Most of you that's listening today will not have the ability to start with 12 people. And the good part about Jesus' deal is that he didn't have to pay them anything because most of his people were financially independent. They were usually businessmen. Most of them were businessmen. They already had skills. They were already working. And that's why you have to understand that when you get a specialist, someone that has money, someone that has expertise, they don't mind working for 6 months, 9 months, or a year without being paid because they know it's just a matter of time before they make enough money where the business will have a profit, and then they would get paid themselves more than they expected. Now, folks, since you know that Jesus was the smartest businessman in the world ever, has more money in his bank than all the business throughout the world, you want to know the name of that business, don't you? Most of you remember, I told you last week. The name of the business that I'm paraphrasing and sharing with you today is called Christianity. Christianity. How many Christians do we have in America, in the world? And when I say Christians, I'm not going to define that word, but how many do we have, folks, that love themselves, that love Jesus, that love God, that love their neighbors, that would put others first? Very few. But allegedly, there are over 3 billion living members and business partners in this business that's called Christianity. That's a lot of folks. You have a lot of sinners included, a lot of what I call evildoers and low-down, dirty disbelievers. You have a lot of imposters. You have people that are conniving to pretend that they're Christians just to get money. We call them those big money preachers, where every time you hear them, they're telling you if you give them $500, you can get $10,000 in the mail next week, or you're going to get a blessing. Some of them are so smart, they didn't stop telling you how much you're going to get. They're going to say, and they do say, I hear it, you will get a blessing that you can't handle. You have to give me half of it because it's too much for you. Sadly, folks, since I just give you a good summary, I've just been giving you this summary now, that most of these people that are in this business, that are practicing Christianity, are not 100% Christians. And that's why this business, even though it's prospering, that's why it has a lot of problems, folks. And the problem, first of all, is it's getting smaller every day. Some leave. Some come into the business. And that's why we have a running number of about 3 million that's living today. And whenever you have a business where they are coming and going, that means you have your semi-executives that's under the head leader, which is Jesus, are not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not following his commands. They are not reading and looking at his business plan. And all of you know, if you remember just yesterday, I told you that Jesus' business plan was so simple until a third grader could handle it. And his business plan was called the 10 Commandments. Since I mentioned that earlier, I'm not going to give the specifics to you today. You go and get the Bible, almost any edition, any kind of Christian Bible, and look in the index and find the 10 Commandments and read them. That's Jesus' business plan, his 10 Commandments. And see, if you were a member of his business, if you were a member of his Christian club, how many could you follow? I'm telling you, very few. Most of you that I know from experience have heard about and read about, most of you can only follow about 3 to 5 of Jesus' business plan, which is his 10 Commandments. 3 to 5. I told you last week, you don't even know them. So how can you follow them if you don't know them? And another reason why a lot of his people are leaving and coming and going and repenting and suffering and coming back, thinking they're going to be saved, is because they don't follow his golden rule. All of you know it. You've heard about the golden rule. I told you yesterday that one should treat others as he would like to be treated himself. Just that simple. Now, I'm going to be paraphrasing a lot of this information because I'm not going to hand feed you. You're going to hear these concepts, these models, and you are to go and do the research yourself and find out what is going on in this business called Christianity. Because Jesus Christ wanted you to be saved and be successful in this Christian business. I, too, would like for you to be successful, because most of the people I know that's in business are not going to make it, ladies and gentlemen. They're not going to make it because they are prone to fail, because they are not doing what they're supposed to do. I told you again, they don't love their neighbors. They don't love themselves. They don't treat others right. They don't follow that golden rule. Now, I'm telling you, folks, if you are concerned about the fact that you can be successful, I just want you to understand what Jesus has been doing to his competitors and his other business partners. I told you there are 4 major competitors out here throughout the world. And there are so many different religions and cults and operations out there, folks, until it's almost disgraceful. And all of them are man-made. Some men and a few women were in the so-called Christian world. They got upset about some of the doctrines. And they said, we're going to start an offshoot. We're going to call it Baptist. We're going to call it the Methodists. We're going to call our new thing the Catholics. We're going to call us Muslims. And there are 4,500 different competitors that's fighting against Jesus' Christianity. That's a big business, folks. All of them are saying, we are the one you want to go to. Many change and start practicing the Methodist philosophy. Others will convert to the Catholics' philosophy, the Muslims' philosophy. Stay around in those areas for a long time, and then they go back to Christianity. And that's when they usually get old and broke for the second time. They heard when they were young that if you practice Christianity and love the Lord, you will die and go to heaven. Most people want to go to heaven when they die because that's what they've been told. They didn't practice the right concepts. And they don't want to do it because Jesus had a plan, and this is what he did, ladies and gentlemen. How did he put this business together? Now, most of you know it. Most of you read about it. Most of you heard some of your preachers talk about what Jesus did to put his business model together during his time. The first thing, he just didn't jump up when he got fired and decided that he was going to start a business. Jesus took about 30 years to prepare and study the models of his major opponents. At the time, they were called the Sadducees and the Pharisees. I told you a little about those folks. And one day, I'm just going to talk about all the practices of those folks that wanted to oppose Jesus. And when I give you that, you're going to see who I'm talking about and what they stood for. The Sadducees, the Pharisees, the so-called false prophets. And over, I'm going to show you that you need to change and do like Jesus. Even though you have competitors, you have to do something else that he did. You know the story. Jesus walked around and talked to people. He listened to people. And he studied the flaws in the political systems. He looked at the flaws that were involved with the priests that didn't want him around, even though they were from the same clan. He listened to the politicians and found that they were not all bad, just some of them. Some of the politicians knew that Jesus was a good man. And the man say, I can't kill him. I'm just going to wash my hand off this matter and give him back to you. And he was talking about giving him back to his friends that didn't like him, that didn't practice his policies, that were in the commandments, that were in the golden rule. And I want you to tell you folks, if you want to get a lesson from what I've just told you, there is a lesson to learn when you get ready to start a business. You need to do like Jesus. You don't rush to start a business, even if you think you're qualified. I told you in my introduction that a lot of you want to start a business because you lost your job after 15 or 20 years. Didn't save a penny. Have no special skills. You're what we call a generalist. You can do a lot of little things. You can't support yourself in anything. So if you're working for someone else, folks, you need to become a specialist in something, get a certificate or some kind of credentials in one or two different areas in your area of activities. They're hiring you to do something, so you be the best in it. And then you have to take the time to study what some of the leading players are doing in your area of interest. They call it mentorship in the current businesses of today. Find someone that is alleged to be a business genius. Learn from him, learn from her, read their books, go and participate in their workshops and seminars. And then, folks, the other thing that you want to do, Jesus did it. He would review the weaknesses of his opponents, and then he would capitalize on their mistakes and not do them himself, and talk to his partners, his disciples, and told them, don't do it other than what I tell you. Do it my way. Do it our way, and we'll be successful. Now listen at this. Just a recap of just two other important things that I told you. You got to understand that Jesus had a mission. He had a vision. He had goals and objectives. And he put all of this in writing, folks. He put it in writing. And indirectly and directly, which is an opposition, is available in the Old and New Testaments. One is the cousin to the other, and you could use them one-on-one, verse by verse, chapter by chapter. In many instances, the New Testament will refer to the Old Testament. And since the specialists put these books together, they know where the good and bad can be found, because they know the Bible said that there's a time for everything and all things, good and bad. And you have the will to decide which one you're going to do. So as you walk around and learn from this presentation that I have today, I want you to remember three things. Don't rush to start your business. Take time to study the leading players and review their weaknesses. And then once you find that out, that's when you're going to state your mission, your vision, your goals and objectives. You're going to put them in writing, so your partners, so your executives, so your line workers can have something to follow. Your commandments, your business plan, your operating agreements. And you make them simple. You don't make them complicated, ladies and gentlemen, because everyone in your business will not have the same high education status. Some of them are not skilled yet. They are non-skilled, but if you train them properly, they will acquire skills. They'll get certified in 2 or 3 different areas. Jesus knew this. So he said, I'm going to start simple and then make this thing big. I told you last time that he said, I am going to put in my plan the following. And I want you all to do this. Say, disciples and others, I want you all to follow me and listen and observe, and we are going to preach good news to the poor. Think about it. What politician you know in America, in the world, that are concerned about poor people? The only thing they want to do for the poor is keep them alive and strong enough to fight in wars. And when they get rid of them, they put them back in an economic situation worse than they were before they started off the war. And they just let them survive in what I call ghettos, what others call relocation camps, what others call concentration camps, what others call refugee camps. and just have people running all over the world trying to find a tent or a torque to look under. And folks, I tell you right now, we are going to be taking a break for a few minutes, and I'm going to come back and give you some more information on the Jesus business model, the best one in the world, and show you how you can be successful. You don't want to be one that failed in the first 5 years. Stay tuned.
Are you dreaming? Becoming an entrepreneur, but you're not sure where or how to start? At Entrepreneurs Academy 101, our online program will guide you step by step on how to start and grow your own business. We offer courses such as how to write a business plan, how to create a budget, and so much more. Our online training program is designed for you to learn at your own pace, and there's no set order to complete this program. Because our academy is online, you have the choice to learn with a group, with friends, or individually. Upon completion of the entire curriculum, you will receive a certificate of achievement to acknowledge that you have completed the training needed to become a successful entrepreneur. So enroll today to design the life that you love. Contact your entrepreneur coach, Brenda Myers, at 601-672-0695 or visit our website at www.entrepreneursacademy101.com for more information.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners, we are back. We're going to do a continuation of part 2 of the smartest business developer in the world that has more members than any business in the world, one that has more money or more funds than all the financial funds put together worldwide right today. We're talking about Jesus and his business that's called Christianity. Just before we had a break a few minutes ago, ladies and gentlemen, we told you that Jesus had something that you should have when you start your business. He had a mission statement. He had a vision. He had goals and objectives. And he made them brief. He made them short. He says, I just told you part of them. He said, I am in business to do 3 things. 1, I'm here to preach good news to the poor. I'm here to heal the sick. And I'm here to bring sinners back to God. That's a big job, ladies and gentlemen. Just 3 little things. Sounds like all that could be done in 2 or 3 years. It has not been done in 2,500 years. But Jesus is saying, have I been successful? He is saying, no, not yet. And the reason is very simple. Listen to me now. Some of you don't want to hear real news. You want to hear propaganda. I tell you this all the time. Now, the reason Christianity has not been successful, and a lot of people are moving in and out of this business, is because some of Jesus' executives, which we call the preachers, are straying away from the membership business agreement. I told you they have visions and goals and objectives, golden rules to follow, commandments to follow. Told you earlier in the introduction that some of these business executives that call themselves preachers just stray away all the time. They try to get rich, and a lot of them do. They want to get rich. They want to have those fine airplanes and cars for themselves, their wives, and their children. They want to go to the big-time conventions. They want you all to buy them cars and suits. Give money to their children that were not able to get a scholarship when they finished high school. They want you all to send them to college. And then they sent them to the best college university in the country, and most of them don't ever complete it because they were not qualified. Their old daddy or their mother, Jesus' executive, the preachers were just what I call evildoers. And then when you are an evildoer sponsoring something that don't know all the details about what's going on, that sponsorship or that mentorship is not going to help those folks very much. So the lesson you learn today is that you never deviate from your goals, objectives, and your mission statement. As you remember, as I summarized briefly, you want to select the best team with experience. Jesus had no college graduates. They didn't have any. During that time, they didn't have what we call colleges and universities. You learn at home from your dad and mother. If your dad was a carpenter, you were a carpenter. During that period, if your dad or mother had other goals, other jobs, other skills, for instance, your father was a fisherman. That's what he taught the boys. If your mother was what we call a domestic worker at home, cooking, sewing, feeding the family, preparing the food, the girls were advised to learn those skills. But Jesus said, I know this, and with this new business that I'm starting, I'm going to select the best team with experience. And guess what he did, for instance? He selected some good old boys that were experienced. Peter, James, John, and Andrew. These boys were already businessmen. They were in the fishing business. And that's why he told the people earlier that I'm going to go out there and preach good news to the poor. Now, back in that period, it was hard to find fish all the time. So a lot of poor people during the time of Jesus were fishermen. They didn't have this technology we have today. You could throw a piece of technology equipment in the pond or the river or the stream or the ocean, and fish will come in by the millions before you count to 10. Back in that period when Jesus walked around trying to carry out his goals and objectives, he had a lot of people that were sick. He had a lot of people that were sinners, and he wanted to bring them back. So it is easy to have people that are skilled, because when you go around with people that's able to use their experience, you can always find the people and teach them how to fish. I've told you this many times. You got to teach people how to fish. And when they catch enough fish, you have to teach them that they can own the pond and they can have others fishing and they get paid for it. Then they go and build them a lake. Then they go and build a river. And then they go and breed fish and put them in all of their ponds, lakes, and rivers. That's what Jesus wants you to do, wants you to expand. And then he said, we got to take care of this money now. We can't be messing up this money. So he got one of the worst men around, but he worked well for a while, and this old boy was called Matthew. He was the tax collector. Boy, he was good with money. Now, he could keep those records accurate to the point, and he would do exactly what Jesus told him. He would say, how much money we have? Give my disciples some money so they can go and buy a little food. And he would give it to them. I'm not going to tell you the story of Matthew, the tax collector, and how he got real rich. We're not going to do that today because we want to put our emphasis and keep our emphasis on Jesus and his business plan. So the lesson to learn today is, in this matter, is to never start a business with inexperienced individuals. Number 2, always review your competitors and hire the best people that are making you suffer because your competitor is making more money than you. They're getting more customers than you. They are doing more international importing than you. Go and hire their best and most experienced people and pay them double if necessary. That's what you do, folks. So once you start, you find that you don't have forever to do it. You got to go on and say, time is of essence. Say, I got to go on and be fast with what I do, with this knowledge, with these people that I have. And then when Jesus finally figured that out and shared it with his disciples, they started working immediately, and they were amazed at the people that were there, wanting their services, wanting to listen to their principles, wanting to adjust to their goals and objectives. And his team traveled around. It didn't take long now. They traveled around for 3 years, talking and walking to the people. And people were listening, folks. They were listening. And they'll do that to you today if you get something going on and you have some specialists with you. You have simple goals where you're only in business to help the people. And people will start listening to Jesus' business plan, his goals and objectives. Because he was very clear when he would go and talk to the people. He would say, I'm here to solve your problems, people. I have been observing. I have been looking at you. I've been talking to you. And this is what I have to do. And he says, I'm going to heal the sick. One of his disciples had a little doubt about Jesus' ability. And he said, and I want you to do the research and find out who said it. He was talking to his fellow disciple and said, I wonder whether Jesus is the one. And he told him, go and talk to another one of our friends. And then look at the following. Did Jesus heal the sick? Did he give sight to the blind? Did he raise the dead? You don't think they had wars during the time of Jesus? They did a lot of fighting on the local level, on the national level. Jesus was one of the best generals around. Many times they would start stoning him, and he would just walk through the crowd and keep on. Because he knew he didn't have long. He just had about 3 years to get his business going. And in order to make it strong, he had to set that tone. And then he said, I am going to train you, disciples, business partners, because one day, in a short period, I'm going to be gone. And your job is to go out and teach others to do the following. I want you to teach others that they need to repent. Stop doing their evil deeds. They need to seek my word. And his word is nothing but his commandments, that's all. I want you to teach them how to follow my commandments. And they will be saved from the evils of the day. They will have more peace in their lives. They will live, and they won't have to be healed every day because they are sick. They will not be blind. They're not going to be dying from disease in mass. They're not going to be fighting every day, all day, every year, all the time with their enemies. They're going to be peace in the land because you disciples are giving the word and telling people they can barely make it without this new plan, and they couldn't. And since Jesus and his disciples didn't have but a short period, according to my research, they barely slept, ladies and gentlemen. Told you a little about this the other day. They barely slept. They worked sometime 12 to 16 hours a day and more on sometimes. They worked as much as possible every day, on weekends, on holidays. Matter of fact, they got in trouble because they were working so much and doing things that were against the customs of the time. working on the Sabbath, healing people, feeding people. And their opponents got on them about it. Man, you shouldn't be working today. The day is for rest. And Jesus and his people were taught to help people every day. The Sabbath, during the time of famine, during the time when they had prevailing sicknesses, help them every day. So the lesson you learn from this, ladies and gentlemen, is once you start a business, you need to give it your utmost attention. Because the fact is, and I told you I deal in facts, 90% of you that start a business will fail within the first 10 years. Only 10% of you are going to survive. So your primary goal, and don't ever forget this, is to learn all the positives and the weaknesses from your competitors. Throw away the weaknesses, enhance the positives, and I guarantee you, you will survive. You'll be one of those survivors in 5 years. And then your business will start attracting more people. Look at Amazon. Look at Google. They started small. Now Google has more money than some nations. Amazon is passing more products than the United States Postal Service. Their owners and founders are billionaires, and many of them are not 40 years of age. Some left there as billionaires before they turned 30. They did it. You can do it if you remember to have a business plan, if you remember to follow the golden rule, if you remember to respect your customers, and if you remember to monitor your business operating agreement that you have written down. So folks, no matter what happens, when you have a business, if you know how to adjust and change your goals and objectives based on the needs of your customers and the economic reversals, ups and downs in the economy, and you make adjustments with your prices, with your products, lower or raise the prices, keep producing quality, I don't care who fails, you will not be one of them. So in order to do that, you want to do something else that Jesus and his people did. You want to focus on training your own people. That's the problem. As Jesus walked around and talked to the people, he talked a language that they can understand. He talked to the people in parables based on their education and skill status in the community during his travel. So when he talked to farmers, he talked about farming and throwing those seeds in the right place. When he talked to the priests, he would stand up there and read the documents and amaze the priest. What's wrong with this boy? Where is he from? Somebody told him where he was from. And they say, I don't believe it. Ain't no good person come from that place. And then we would talk to the politicians. He had another scenario. He talked to them in a manner and looked them directly in the eyes and said, Mr. Politician, you're wrong. You ought to be helping the poor. You should be out here trying to help the sick. You ought to be out here trying to promote peace, not wars. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you now, you need to tell your politicians this. You need to tell your fake preachers this. You need to tell your sons and daughters and members in the community that we are suffering because of lack of knowledge and we don't follow instructions. We know we can do better, and you're just waiting for someone else to do it. So I'm telling you, folks, when you get these things going, when you have parables and commandments to tell and explain to the people all of these things in detail, you'll find then that as they walk down these dirty roads and they talk to the priests and the politicians and other people that I call that are hell-bound sinners, you're going to convert some of them. They're going to come to your camp. So you got to look at the good news, the good words. You don't condemn anyone. you always talk about the products you're selling. And you focus on building that good team that I told you. And people will buy into your business, and they will stay there. Look at all the people today that are buying stock in the big companies that manufacture cars, airplanes, those big companies that are building robots, those big companies that are in what we call artificial intelligence that's going to create more jobs than they lose. Those companies that have all the energy products and giving you products that will keep you cool in the summer and hot in the winter. They have products to take care of you. So if you want to learn something and want to do what is necessary, you have to always think that there is someone out there that's done this before. And I'm not going to sit around here and waste my time years and years studying this. I'm going to get the best and the latest information and do like Jesus. I'm going to get out here and for a few months or a year or so, even though I'm working, I'm going to do it when I'm off in the evenings, on weekends. And I'm going to travel around and see what's going on. I'm going to look at what is happening so I can be saved, so I can be independent. I want to be like Jesus. That's what you tell yourself. Now, we know some of you will say that, and you're not going to do what you're supposed to do, but it's always good to have a goal, to have a mission, to have some objectives in life. You're going to fall short from time to time. Who's not going to fall short? We all are going to fall short from time to time. But if you want to be able to be successful, and if you want to be strong and promote what I call justice and freedom and success and be able to overshadow your competitors, you need to be like a man that you know about. I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about another man that was a great businessman. He was known during his time as a race man. R-A-C-E, a race man, a man that loved himself, that loved his family, that loved so-called black people. And at the same time, this man was a lover of Jesus and his business model. This man loved freedom. And this man would go around just like Jesus and his executives and fight with his enemies. This man also traveled many dirty roads and highways in the South, in the North, in the East, in the West, in Europe, and shared his words and speeches and books in Asia, Africa, all over the world. I'm talking about a God's man. I'm talking about a race man. And this is a man that most of you have heard about but don't know much about. And this man's name is Frederick Douglass. So I'm going to paraphrase his commandments. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Frederick Douglass' golden rule. And I'm going to tell you something about this God's man, this race man, this man that loved Jesus and his works. I'm going to tell you how this man followed his daily operating agreement. The man I'm talking about, I told you earlier, is Frederick Douglass. Now, he said this, and I'm going to paraphrase it and make it simple. Oh, Frederick Douglass said, in this world today, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're in business or not, you have to have a plan. And this life is not going to be easy unless you have a plan. He says, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. So you got to be ready to fight. And he said, those of you who favor freedom and yet allow the human enemies of mankind to devalue you and make you men that think you're going to get something without plowing the fields, you are misleading yourself. He said, no matter whether the struggle is a moral one, or it may be physical, or it may be both moral and physical, say there must be a struggle. Jesus struggled all the time. His disciples struggled all the time, running around here and there, the dirty roads along the highway. And old Frederick Douglass was a Bible man. He said, power concedes nothing without a man. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Think about it. You have to demand something. Don't think the human enemies of mankind are going to give you anything. They're not going to do it. He said they never will, and they never did. Not going to give you a thing. He says you got to struggle. And if there's no struggle, there's no progress. And I'm going to tell you, folks, that I have one word to say about Frederick Douglass. Golden rule, about his commandments, about his daily business agreement that he told all over the world, in Asia, Africa, America. The one word I have to say about his no struggle, no progress thesis is amen. Amen. That's all you need to go. And as I leave you today, folks, I don't have many minutes left. I want you to always remember to pool your resources. Select and train your own leaders. Don't let folks just send you someone. And in areas where you are in the majority, worldwide, I want you to determine your destiny from birth to death and pass this concept down for the next 300 years to your children. If you are educating yourself, if you have principles of leadership, if you believe in economic development, if you believe in religion, you need to always remember to be successful in anything, good or bad, and I'm saying it now, good or bad, you have to organize. Don't criticize the human enemies of mankind. Do something for self. Make a plan that's going to be promoting your interests from birth to death. I want to say thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to hear more, you can call me at 601-201-1957. Again, 601-201-1957. If you want us to talk to you in your city, in your state, anywhere in the world, you can call that number, or you might want to email us at clu369@gmail.com. Or you might want to go to the website, actionleadershipinstitute.org, and look at some of the things we do. Of course, you can find us at WeBelieveDigital.com. We Believe Radio. But don't forget to call. Don't forget to email. Don't forget to listen to us. And you'll get the real news. You'll get the Henderson real news. Organize. Don't criticize the human enemies of mankind. Thank you. Until next week, ladies and gentlemen.